Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for joining our webinar this morning. It's really great to have you with us. For those of you who don't know, my name's Kurt. I'm the sales director here at Pragmatiq. I've been working in the business application space now for about 10 years, and mainly my role is supporting customers to understand the art of the possible with Microsoft technology and identify opportunities for them to optimize and improve their processes by adopting the Microsoft Cloud tech that we use. So for the webinar today, we want to try and highlight some of the key trends and the challenges that our service-based charity customers are facing and try and explain based on some real-life success stories how service-based charities are using data to drive their organization forward and ultimately help more people. So we will have some time for questions at the end, so please do pop them into the chat box as we go, and we'll ensure that we try and get to as many of them as possible at the end of the presentation. And before we start, I must just say I'm a little jaded today, and I know some of you on the call were also at the Microsoft Elevate London event yesterday. There was over 500 charity and NFP leaders there, which was such a great event that was put on by Microsoft. And I'm joined by Chris, who was also there yesterday. So welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Yeah, Kurt, thank you very much. Also feeling jaded. Got back late yesterday evening, and it was an amazing day and great to speak to so many leaders, both non-profit and education, and also our amazing partners. So delighted to be here with you today. I'll take you through my slides shortly, but just really to say thank you for giving up your time. Whatever it is you do within your organisation, we know that you are pressed for time. So genuinely giving us 45 minutes of your time is really, really precious, and we do thank you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us today. So just before we start, for those that don't know, so Pragmatiq, we are a certified Microsoft Business Applications partner, which is really the new version of gold partner status that we all, I'm sure, knew back in the day. In addition, we also hold the advanced specialization in low code, which is a level which is held by very few partners now in the UK. And we believe that Microsoft Business Applications is all about experience, and our delivery team have over 130 years of combined experience with these solutions. And we hold over 40 different certifications across the stack, which really shows our passion for quality and ensuring that our team of consultants continue to align with the latest changes, and also, like what we heard yesterday, many amazing developments that Microsoft continue to release. We've been a business for 8 years, and in that time have delivered more than 150 projects, which for me is 150 goes at getting it right. And that's learning from all the customers along the way, which to identify best practice advice, things that work, things that maybe haven't worked so well. And that supports new clients on their journey to make sure they're getting the best guidance. Over half of those projects are working with clients in the charity and non-profit space, so even more relevant experience to help charity customers on their journey. And we're not just passionate about working with charities, we also choose a different charity to support with our own fundraising each year. And this year we've chosen Place to Be for 2026, and they do some amazing work to improve children and young people's mental health. We're also proud to have been part of around 19 award processes, and that ranges from Best Place to Work to one of our proudest, which was Best Technology Provider at last year's Charity IT Leaders. So that's just a little bit about us to set the scene, and I'm delighted to be joined by Chris from Microsoft Elevate today, who's going to take us through a few initial slides.
Thanks, Kurt, and thank you again, everyone, for joining, and thanks to Pragmatiq for putting this on. It really is credit to them that they get this sector, and I'll cover how important partners are to us as we move forward. So, as Kurt says, my name's Chris Lyons. I work in our partner team as a solution sales manager, and that sounds like a posh job title. Basically, what it means is I always say I've got one of the luckiest jobs in the world. I get to spend every day, and I have done for nearly 5 years now, working with amazing non-profits, and some of the names that are on the call I'll probably work with you, maybe with you directly or indirectly, all across the globe, solving some of the world's most pressing issues. And the best thing about it, I'm supported by hundreds of partners who love telling me how great they are at supporting you guys as well. And genuinely they are. There's lots of partners out there that do this by accident, and Pragmatiq are not one of them. They do this on purpose, hence the reason that we're here today on a webinar just talking to service-based charities. I want to spend a few minutes today just to talk about the team I'm a part of at Microsoft Elevate. And we're here to help you achieve your mission. That's why we live. We've also actually brought education under our umbrella as well this year, and that's so to help education institutions accelerate learning. And I really just want to, I'm also so excited to share what we do and how some of them things have really come to life and how we do that via our partners. Because as I say, without them, we're nothing. Because there's 170,000 customers here in the UK and there's one of me. So the only way we can do that is with our partners. So Microsoft Elevate mission is about putting people first. We are committed to the creation and the use of AI that serves humanity and respects fundamental human rights. And this is all guided by our responsible AI principles. We are empowering people with skills to thrive. We're investing in people, into institutions and ideas that will ensure that AI does serve everyone. And we want to partner to drive economic success and opportunity. Building the next generation of opportunity is going to take all of us. That's Microsoft, that's our partners such as Pragmatiq, and that's you guys. And we want to partner together to advance that AI education, but also to advocate for policy solutions around the globe. And we're partnering with policymakers and governments at a national and local level to drive forward these policies and really advance STEM AI education and training throughout schools and colleges and non-profits in our world today and also into tomorrow. And we know that today is going to look very different to tomorrow. We'll be focused on the benefits and challenges that will come from the economic and the societal impacts of the global AI transformation. And this effort builds on a 50-year journey that's been focused at Microsoft on helping people and organizations adapt and benefit from the advances in digital technology and in technology in general, whether that be the printing press through to electricity and then the internet and now AI. We're committed to a future where AI supports economic growth and improves the lives of people, including whether that be in school, in work, or your personal lives. And we do that by bringing the power of AI into those communities, organizations and institutions that are serving communities all around the world. And what we did is we built an 8-year sustainable business model called Tech for Social Impact. Some of you may have heard about that, and that's been rebranded as Elevate, and that's a proven business model. And we want to keep providing the best technology and skilling from Microsoft, but also to continuing to reinvest back into the sector through grants, discounted and donated technology. So as we did with Tech for Social Impact, we'll run this new business with commitments to reinvest a share of our profits back into non-profit programs. But the only way we know that technology can enable change is if people know how to use it. And that is why investing in skilling for the non-profit sector and also the education sector, as well as global workforce, is really important as we navigate the next AI economy. Next slide, please, Kat. So you may have heard this phrase, especially if you've been to a Microsoft keynote in the past 6 months, but this phrase is becoming frontier. And this isn't a marketing phrase. This is something that's real. The challenge ahead is clear. For everyone on this call, it's to prepare your organizations for an AI enhanced future. We know that data is absolutely the fuel for that. I know that Kurt will be moving on to that shortly. But this shift is being driven by the rise of digital labor, which is giving way to a new kind of enterprise, this frontier organization, or for the sake of this, the frontier non-profit. And these organizations look fundamentally different to those that we know today. They're built on on-demand intelligence, powered by the human and people-first AI collaboration, scaling faster, operating with greater agility, and unlocking value at unprecedented speed. So we know that everyone on this call probably isn't frontier yet, and I'd say that Microsoft are not frontier yet. So hopefully, as I go through the next couple of slides, we'll help you understand where you are on becoming frontier and how we can help you set up for success as you accelerate that journey. And I want you to really think about this new organizational blueprint in your nonprofit, one that blends this machine intelligence with human judgment, building systems that are AI operated but still human led. And as with the Industrial Revolution and then the internet era, this transformation might take decades to show its full promise. And it'll involve broad technological, societal, and economic changes. And these frontier nonprofits are already taking shape. And genuinely think within the next 2 to 5 years, we expect every organization will be well on that journey to become one. So when I look at nonprofit and we look at what do we mean and really take it down to this vertical level, we think about organizations that are not just keeping up, but they're leading the way in terms of impact, innovation, and resilience. It's an organization that's evolving this digital maturity across these 4 pillars that you can see here. So first we start with the people, the most important people in organizations. We want to make sure that every nonprofit worker and volunteer transforms how they work so they can serve more effectively and deliver greater value every single day. Then we take your mission and we look about how we can streamline program delivery, modernize constituent engagement services, but also making every single interaction more efficient, more personalized, and more meaningful. And then we turn to relationships and why most of us are in this, the business that we're in. It means reaching more people, deepening connections, and building trust and transparency and long-term support. And then we look at the foundation, which is the operations, and Kurt will take us through some more of this later today. But this is evolving about how nonprofits deliver mission-based work, leveraging that technology to reinvent processes, improve agility and scale, and impact sustainably. And all of these pillars combined define what it really means to become a frontier nonprofit. And that's ready to meet today's challenges and then tomorrow's opportunities with confidence and clarity. Next slide, please, Kurt. And we talk about AI transformation a lot, and we talk about frontier. It'd be silly not to talk about trust. It's important to pause and really look at the foundational topic, which is trust. And Microsoft's approach to AI centers on the idea that unlocking human potential starts with trust. We live everything by this, by our technology that we produce, by the way that we work internally, and the way we work with our partners. It means that all our systems are safe, secure, and respect your privacy at every single step. I get bored of saying this, but it's so important. But your data is your data. It is not used to train or enrich any foundational models without your permission. Your data and AI models are protected at every single step by our customer copyright commitment. And if anyone's got any questions around trust and what we do with your data, then please let me know. But we think about all this great technology and all this opportunity, and without skilling, we know that it'll probably lack the impact that it could and should have. So how are we delivering AI skills at scale? First, we want to work with the organizations that need support. And that's you guys on this call. You're already working, so we're already working with skills to the people to deliver these skills. We partner with organizations across government and trade unions, and we're delivering proper skills, whether that be data and insight skilling or curriculum and industry recognized credentialing. And we'll do this by leaning on a tried and true approach, and that's partnering at the local levels. I think you'll all probably agree that at times of change, people don't turn to us for guidance. They turn to institutions and people within their communities they trust. That might be their teachers, their union leaders, non-profit workers who know their struggles. And when we combine the deep community knowledge with AI's potential, and that's when real breakthroughs can happen. So hopefully, with this skilling partnerships that we've got, it represents the kind of work that we'll be doing in the coming years together, and that's really important. So just as I wrap up, I just want to give you some actionable next steps. Microsoft produces a lot of stuff, and I would say that the QR code on screen now, the ability to download everything really condensed and really non-profit focused in our AI toolkit will really help. So please, I urge you to do that. I'm sure the slides will be shared after this. Come and talk to us. We're always interested via, Pragmatiq, to literally sit down and learn what your problems are, learn what you want to achieve, and how we can help you. There's a link there to our skilling that I just mentioned previously, and also go and make sure you're getting the most out of your grants and your discounts. Nothing hurts me more than when I speak to a non-profit and I realise they've been paying commercial pricing for the last few years, because we don't want your money to be going on Office 365 to a commercial partner. We want it to be going on helping whatever your mission is. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving up your time today. Thank you for the guys at Pragmatiq. Without our partners, I say, we wouldn't be able to do anything. They are our shoulders to cry on, your shoulders to cry on. They are our licensing experts, your licensing experts. So please lean into them, and hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thanks, Kurt.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate your time this morning and helping out, and some super valuable insights there. So just as we kick off today, we just wanted to share some of the charity organisations that we've worked with over the years. Yeah, they range from national charities like Mental Health Matters and Terence Higgins Trust and Grocery Aid, to local charities like Elaborate and Brighton Therapy Centre. So although, of course, all organisations have their own uniques, the majority of the charities that we speak to, they have the same technology challenges like siloed data, manual processes, and the key topic of today, which is going to be limited reporting. So you all share similar objectives: boosting fundraising, increasing efficiency, ultimately helping more people in need. So before we dive into the content today, in true Microsoft style, I can stand here all day telling you how good we are, but thought it would be great to hear directly from one of our clients. This is James's Place. They're a suicide prevention charity, and they're going to tell us how Microsoft solutions have transformed the way that they work. Hoping the video is going to play.
We're called James's Place because our service and our charity was developed following the death of a young man called James. Charity was set up by his parents, Nick and Claire. Claire, I think it's safe to say, had a real vision of a place where, at that moment of a suicidal crisis, that James would be able to go and get the help that he needed pretty much straight away. Referral comes in, and we have set ourselves a specific time frame for when that should be responded to. We reach out straight away to make appointments and to bring them through, but we need to record that we've done all that. So that was all happening on a big spreadsheet. When a referral comes in, what can happen to that referral? We either don't take it, or we do take it, or we need some more information. So those are the outputs of that first interaction. What's the outputs of the second interaction, the third interaction? So that timeline goes across the top of every page that a therapist opens related to a client episode of care. And so even that first glance, they can see that the person's, they're in treatment, they've had so many appointments, and they've been with us for 28 days. We've got like auto-generated GP letters and auto-generated reminders, all things that make it less and less likely that a man misses appointment, or that they don't get the information that they need, or more importantly, that their GP doesn't know what's happening to them. So the way that we were able to configure the system was to pull all of those things in so that they all happen without a therapist having to remember, right, I've got to send a GP letter now. Now we moved on to doing the Power BI work. We're able to look at trends across centres. We're able to look at trends. I could work out whether is Monday a good day for us to do therapy. Do we get more DNAs on a Monday than we do on a Thursday? Should we close on Monday? It's those sorts of questions now that we can ask ourselves in terms of service delivery, because we've now got the data. That's really easy to access. The feedback from the therapist has been universally positive. It has been game changing, I think, in lots of ways for us. We're called James.
And the reason that we shared that video is because the last part of it is very specific to the topics today, around using data to understand trends and understand how they can make the practice more relevant and more successful by helping more people. So, but before we talk about dashboards or technology, I want to just ground this session in the reality that most of you, I'm sure, are facing right now. That the demand for services is rising, that the funding is tighter, often shorter term, and expectations from funders and commissioners and trustees and regulators are also getting higher. And at the same time, the teams that we have or you have are stretched and the capacity is limited. So in this environment, the decisions that we make as service-based charities, they matter more than ever. And the one key message for today is how having late insights can be just as risky as no insights at all. So that's why we believe that having data-driven decisions, it's not a nice to have for service-based charities anymore. It's really becoming essential. So let's kick off with why data and why clear data really matters. And this slide captures the difference that we see most often when we work with service-based charities, not between good and bad organizations. Let's make that really clear. This is just between clear and unclear data. So there's no judgment here. If we start on the left-hand side, this is where many charities recognize themselves. Without clear and joined up data, the pressure on their services is often identified too late. And by the time it's visible, the teams are already stretched and your options to help more are often limited. Your resources then tend to get allocated based on assumptions. It might be experience or instinct, or most commonly, who's shouting the loudest. So rather than having a clear picture of what's actually happening across the services, they're making these gut feel decisions, which can then impact on the service that's being provided. And this has a knock-on effect. So leadership confidence is reduced because the numbers that take time to produce, they're hard to trust. And ultimately the outcomes, which is the real difference that your work makes, it becomes harder to evidence and consistently, and especially back to funders and commissioners. If we look on the right-hand side, we're not talking about perfection, we're talking about visibility. So with clearer and more connected data, the risks and the rising demands become visible much earlier. And that gives leaders and charities time to act rather than just react. So services can be planned more effectively because the decisions are based on patterns over time rather than isolated snapshots. And as you saw in the video with with James's Place, they have live dashboards where they can see what's coming and what impacts are required on services in advance. So this is how they deal with day to day, but the impact that they're delivering can then also be clearly demonstrated using the same data that the teams are already using, but already capturing as part of their day-to-day work. So as a result, the decisions become much faster. You become much more confident in the decisions, not because there's more data, but because the right data is visible to the right people at the right time. So the really important thing here is that most charities already have all the data shown on the right-hand side. It's just often spread across different systems or spreadsheets or even teams and in people's heads. So the rest of this session is how we can move from the left-hand side of this slide to how we can move to the right-hand side without creating more admin or more work for already stretched teams. So on the previous slide, we talk about the risk of poor visibility and the pressures being identified too late. On this slide, we want to show the importance around most service-based charities aren't missing the data entirely, but they're missing joined up data. And that's specifically across 3 different areas that we see. So the first area is funding and accountability. So we often hear questions like, are we using the funding as intended? Or what does a service or an outcome actually cost us? So without clear visibility here, the reporting becomes time consuming and stressful. We speak to so many users who spend their Friday afternoons, digging into spreadsheets, trying to calculate information, which then has to be presented back to funders or commissioners. And that's often where charity people can feel under most pressure. They've got to get these reports right. It's time consuming, it's manual. They've got to do this to feed back to the powers that be. The second area is around staff and volunteers. So these are your people. And this is usually one of the most overlooked areas of data. If you can't clearly see the caseloads or the workload balance, the volunteer activity, or even just how long your people are waiting for a first contact, it becomes very hard to protect your team from overwork and potentially burnout. And especially if you have volunteers, the risk of them being burnt out and therefore not helping more in the future is a huge risk to already quite tight resource capacity. So good visibility here supports fairness, it supports well-being, but it supports sustainable delivery for the long term, not just immediate performance. And then third is around the service delivery itself. So this is where the pressure usually shows up first, but it's not always clear. So referrals compared to capacity, or waiting times, engagement and outcome trends, they all help us to answer one key question, which is, are our services coping, or are they actually quietly or sometimes loudly under strain? So without the visibility, issues often surface only when they've become urgent. We come back to that who's shouting the loudest. So when these three areas are not connected, so funding and people and service delivery, we as leaders are forced to rely on assumptions. And that's exactly how organizations are on the left-hand side of the previous slide rather than the right-hand side. So the goal of data-driven insights, it's more than reporting. It's about bringing the views together so we can make decisions earlier and with more confidence to ultimately relieve pressure on the organization. So what actually changes when the data is visible and connected? So the first and most important change that we see is timing. When the data is clear and joined up, the pressure points show up earlier. So before services are overwhelmed, it gives leaders options. They can adjust capacity, they can change priorities, they can have informed conversations with funders rather than reacting once things are already at breaking point. The second is how services improve. So instead of relying on isolated feedback or one-off reviews, teams can see patterns over time. What's working well? What are outcomes? What are the strongest outcomes? Where might small changes make a difference? So that's what we mean by evidence-based improvement. It's practical, it's continuous, and it's grounded on real data rather than gut feel. And for many charities, data can feel a bit abstract or removed from day-to-day work. So that's why it's really important it's presented clearly. It becomes something that teams can actually use, not just something that exists for report's sake. So it helps people understand why decisions are being made and not just what decisions are being made. The clear data also changes the quality of the conversation. So it means that you can confidently report back to funders and commissioners and trustees instead of, as we said, that Friday afternoon scrambling around trying to produce reports. We can feel and talk more confidently about the demand and the outcomes and the value for the money that's being put into the charity. And one of the biggest benefits here is time. When reporting is automated and it's live, as well as being trusted, it means that teams spend far less time pulling numbers together and more time using them, but ultimately more time giving back to the charity and helping people, which is what we all want to be doing more of. So again, it's not just about having more data, it's about making the data you already have work harder for you and give you the insights that are relevant. So we promised some real life examples as part of today. So let's look at how Microsoft technology are helping some of our customers and what that looks like in the real world. So this is one of the first examples that we have here, which is a view focused on donor segmentation. So we've anonymized this, we've put it into dollars and so on. So this is not real data, it's just to give you a sense. So what's important here is not the charts itself, it's the visibility that they give. So instead of looking at a single donation in isolation, this type of view helps a charity to see different groups of donors and how they engage over time. Who's growing, who's stable, who might be at the risk of lapsing. So that allows us to segment donors more effectively, not just by value, but by behavior, by journey, by age. And you can see at the top here all of the different views that we can see by different types of giving or different types of age range or where they're based and so on. So the practical outcome, as we keep saying, is better decision making. Every charity, as we come back to our first challenges slide, has limited resource. So knowing where to focus the limited time on fundraising, where retention matters the most and where there may be opportunities to deepen that support, that's where the practical outcomes will come. And crucially, this insight is available without manual spreadsheet work. So this is a live report. It's always up to date. It's always easy to explore. This example here shows how service delivery can be reported clearly and confidently at board level. So instead of having multiple reports that bring demand together, this will show us our delivery activity, our outcomes, our capacity in one single live view. So whoever in the organization needs to see it, whether it's the board, whether it's volunteers, the service delivery manager, they can quickly see how service is performing and also where the pressure may be building up and whether capacity is being used effectively. So the key value here is assurance. It gives all of our people in our charity confidence that decisions are based on reliable information rather than that gut feel. And it provides better oversight, earlier intervention. So when those risks emerge, we've got the live data to really know what we should do about it in advance of when it becomes a problem. And the final example is around campaign and channel attribution. So for many charities, this is traditionally the hardest areas to see clearly. Data is often spread across different tools and platforms and spreadsheets. Again, this view brings all of the information together, showing how different campaigns and different channels are contributing to engagement and ultimately outcomes. So teams can see here what's working, what isn't working, where the limited time we have is best spent. That's a real key message to get across here, is instead of shooting hundreds of bullets into all manner of different places, we want to be really clear that with the limited time we have, we're spending it on the right things. So across all of these examples, the theme is the same. It's clearer data leads to earlier insight and then better decisions, which will reduce or minimize the pressure on our teams. So we've spoken about the challenges and we've seen some real world solutions. So just wanted to take a second to talk around the technology that sits behind all of this. So for many charities, they haven't necessarily explored what technology could do for their organization. And sometimes it might feel overwhelming to get started. So understanding what the different technologies are within the Microsoft ecosystem is a good place to start. So we've been showing mostly around Power BI today, which is the reporting tool that lives inside of the Microsoft ecosystem. It's a reporting and analytics tool that connects data from across your organization and across your different systems and brings it into one clear, trusted view. So all of the example reports and so on we've been showing today are using Power BI. So it's not what makes it valuable for charities is not the charts, it's what it replaces. And most commonly that's manual spreadsheets, disconnected reports. So Power BI can be that live solution that saves you time, gives you stronger reporting, gives you that clear view of impact and ultimately drives those better decisions. But Power BI works best when it's not just on its own, it also sits on top of a connected Microsoft ecosystem, which is all of these different business applications which have various different use cases. So the business applications landscape is wide. We have Dynamics 365, we have Power Apps. This is where the structured data typically lives. So things like service delivery or relationships, casework, replaces those spreadsheets and digitizes data so you can then actually use it for reporting. And this is the first time I've said this on this webinar, 35 minutes in, AI. You have to have good data to begin with to start rolling out AI and more trusted. And regarding AI is Copilot Studio, which is the additional AI layer over time, which helps charities to do more with less, adopting AI and enhancing their productivity. On the bottom of the slide here, you can see that underpinning all of this is Microsoft 365. And these are familiar tools which people already use mostly every day. Your Outlook, your Teams, your SharePoint, your Excel. They're not separate from this. They're natively connected. So emails and documents, conversations, they're all linking back to the same data. And that's what makes this practical for many of our customers is they don't have to learn an entirely new way of working. The insights from Power BI, for example, they fit naturally into the tools that they already know and trust. So the key point, and Chris made it, is that everything here is connected by design. It's one set of data supporting service, delivery, reporting, collaboration, but also that very trusted Microsoft security and governance that underpins all of these solutions as well. So before we move into actionable takeaways, this is a slide that we'll share with you afterwards. It just brings to life some of the challenges that we see service-based charities are already solving using the Microsoft stack. So everything here from caseloads and case management, service performance, safeguarding, board reporting, it's all connected under the same foundation. And that's what makes Microsoft solutions scalable and sustainable. You don't need to build or have 10 different solutions. You can build one data foundation that supports many needs across the charity and also grows and evolves with the charity over time. So let's look at a practical way to get started. I wanted to leave you with something simple. And as I said, a practical way to get started without trying to do everything at once. So the first step, and probably the most important, is getting your data foundations right. For most charities, the biggest challenge is not actually Power BI. It's that data lives in too many places. So spreadsheets and shared drives and inboxes and individual siloed systems. When data is siloed and fragmented, it means that your reporting is often slow and it's fragile, it's hard to trust. So the goal for the first step is quite simple. It's try and bring your core data together, whether that's services, people, volunteers, funding, bringing it into one secure place that the organization owns. And once that foundation is in place, everything else becomes significantly easier. If anyone's heard me speak before, you'd often hear the house analogy that I use. Getting the foundations for the house is really important as a starting point, and then enables you to get into more of the technology mature advancements. The second step is being really intentional about what you want to report on. Good reporting doesn't show everything. It focuses on the real important questions that your stakeholders are asking, whether that's your leaders, your trustees, your funders, even your day-to-day people. So when reporting built on real questions, it generally becomes useful and it's not just another task. And the final step is embedding insight into day-to-day decision making. So it means moving away from static monthly reports, static spreadsheets that are manually updated, and towards live dashboards. So the examples that we've showed you today, they're not far away. They're live dashboards that are always up to date. And it means you can then enable things like automation, you can enable things like AI to really reduce that manual admin and that manual workload and surface those insights to the people that need it with even familiar tools like Teams or Outlook or SharePoint. So the key thing is it's not about more dashboards, it's not about more reports, it's about getting the dashboards and the data faster, which will enable your better decisions with less effort. So if there's one takeaway today, you don't need to do everything at once. Getting the foundations is really important as a starting point. And by doing that, it brings everything else into reach. So before we move on to questions, let me finish with a final step. We're offering a free 30-minute discovery session today with Pragmatiq for anybody who's attended or registered to attend the webinar. We're not here to sell anything. It's simply to understand where your charity's data currently is and what reporting you are looking to produce. So we'll talk through what's working well, what feels painful, where small changes could potentially make a meaningful difference. So we'll bring also our experience from working with many other charity organizations in terms of what best practice and what success could look like. So there's no obligation to do anything after this call. It's about helping you with clarity and also confidence in terms of what you might want to do next. So if you feel that would be useful, be very happy to have that conversation, and you can register for this via the QR code, or of course we'll be sharing the slides out after the call. So we've got just about enough time for some questions. I'm just going to dive into see here if there's anything in here. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions, but please feel free to put in any more as you wish. So the first one is let me just find that. Okay, so we're a small charity. Do we need perfect data before we can start using? That's a really common concern. And the answer really is no. You don't have to start with perfect data. There's no such thing as perfect data. The important thing is to understand where your data lives, because a tool like Power BI can potentially connect with different data sources. So it's important you can improve, the quality of your data over time, and having one trusted place for data is much better, but you don't have to start with having perfect data, because I must admit, perfect data probably doesn't exist. And then we have, how long does it typically take to see value from better reporting? I mean, it's often quicker than people expect. Once your data is, once it's understood of where your data is and how that can be accessed, reporting is then focused on the right questions. So think back to that step 2. So once those reports are up and running, charities can see value really quickly. It's certainly weeks rather than months. So even simple dashboards can reduce your reporting time or improve confidence in the numbers. So we often see that reporting and insights, they bring ROI really quickly. We already use Excel a lot. Why isn't that enough for reporting? That's a great question. You can't get away from Excel. It's a great tool for analysis, and a lot of the tools that we implement, they have Excel integration because people are familiar and they understand how that works. But it's the manual creation of the Excel reports or the manual update, which is often time consuming. But also, as the data volumes grow, Excel can become fragile. It's certainly manual and sometimes hard to govern. So I'm not saying Power BI necessarily replaces all of Excel, but it builds on it, and it gives you more of a consistent and a secure way to report. And also it means that teams can share the data and they spend less time maintaining the spreadsheets, but more time actually gaining insights from the live reports. How long does it typically take to become familiar with Power BI and its functionality? That's a really good question. It really comes down to what sort of people that you have in your organization. So Microsoft will deliver these solutions as what's called citizen developer. So they like to lead that the tools don't need you to have coding experience, and part of the training and the enablement that we do as part of a project and also as part of our managed service means that often our clients will get up to speed with Power BI fairly quickly, so they can actually manage their own tiles and create new dashboards and interrogate data further. So yeah, it's a weeks rather than months piece, I would say, and certainly as part of our help and support, we can give you that training to get up and running quickly. Okay, I think we're almost up at time, guys. So look, I just wanted to say before we end, thank you everybody for giving us your time today. As we said at the top of the show, time is really pressing, and we really appreciate you spending 45 minutes with us today. I really hope that you've taken something from today. If you did want to follow up and organise the discovery session with us, we'd be delighted to have some further conversations with you. Likewise, if you wanted to give us some feedback on today, we've got another webinar next week, which is an end-to-end view for charities from fundraise all the way through to actually recognising cash and gift aid and so on. So if you wanted to join that, you can find those links on our social. We'll also be doing some other webinars later in the year and most likely some in-person events as well. So please do give us your thoughts on particular topics, or whether we went too deep today, too technical, or it was just right. So we'd love your feedback. Thanks again, everybody, for joining, and wishing you the best rest of your day and weekend when it arrives very soon. So thanks, everybody.